Roll call, I see Linda, Cam, Susan, Dr. Sarah Crosby's on, Robin Bates Mason is on, Tiger Man is on, and Pam is hosting the meeting. Thank you all. I'd like to approve the minutes from February 11th. I don't know if anyone would like to make a motion.
February 14th.
Oh, February.
Sorry, January 14th and February 11th.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes, I'd like to make that motion. Would you like to make that motion, Linda?
So do we, okay, I move that we approve the minutes of February 11th and January 14th.
I'll second. Any questions, Cam?
I wasn't at the.
Pam wasn't here.
I wasn't in February. I was at January.
Yeah.
The one thing I'd say about February is that Mike Dinan's name is misspelled Mike Divan.
So we wouldn't have a quorum to approve the February 11th. I don't think.
Susan is here.
Do you have three?
Was Susan at the February 11th?
Yes.
one?
Yeah,
Yes.
so Marty and I weren't at that one.
Okay, all right, good, all right.
So like I said, there's
any
one
second?
typo in Mike Dinan. Should be Mike Dinan, not Mike Divan.
All right, we'll correct that.
Oh, well, there were also expand testing on page 1 and Friends of Bristow on page 2. I did Cam's job this time.
I'll check. Susan, can you make note of those two amendments and then they'll be approved?
I'm sorry, we have the spelling of Mike Dinan's name and the other one was?
Under the river water testing and expand testing to include under that paragraph.
Mhm.
And then on the second page is Friends of Bristow.
There's more than one.
That's good.
Okay, so these are typos.
Right.
Yes,
Got it.
I
Typos are
would
easy.
say the February minutes look great to me. Typos.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
thank
they
you.
actually look beautiful.
Okay. Then can we have them approved subject to correcting the typos? All in favor?
Aye.
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 Same.
Okay, thanks, Cam. All right, just quickly, we'll move into the agenda. I understand we're moving towards silver accreditation under Sustainable Connecticut. On the pollinator pathway, we are getting closer to an installation program at Bristow. And then I'm going to move right to New Canaan River water testing. And Linda, perhaps you can introduce Dr. Crosby and our current thinking on river testing.
Okay. Oh, you want to do, you want to do that now? I'm sorry.
Yes, I think we'll do that.
Oh,
then.
okay. So Sarah has Dr. Crosby. This is the second year that you did this last year. This is the second year report that you're going to be presenting to us. Sarah is manages Harbor Watch for Earth Place. She does wonderful work. She's brilliant, and and I've enjoyed talking with her about our plans for this coming spring season through, it would be May through September. And I think we'll be doing 3 rivers this time. We'll be doing what we did without Silvermine River. And then we still have to talk about and agree as to what kind of pesticide or pesticide testing we might want to do in the surface waters of Bristow and perhaps some other ponds in the area.
Okay.
Thank you, Linda. That was a very kind introduction. I should bring you with me to every meeting I go to. I'm so rarely showered with compliments before I give my little data updates. So I have I promise it's a very quick PowerPoint, but it's easier to show these data than to tell about them. So let me just, are you guys seeing my PowerPoint now?
We sure
Mhm.
do.
Okay, good. You never know with Zoom. It's always, you never know if you're going to get it on the first try. Okay, so thank you. I'm Sarah Crosby, and I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for the invitation. So just to share a little bit in case anyone doesn't know about Harbor Watch. So we are a water quality research and education program. We are based out of Earth Place in Westport, but we work throughout Fairfield County. And we've been doing this for 35 years. So we've been around for a long time, founded as a citizen science program, but now we have a professional science staff and our own state certified laboratory. And our mission is to improve water quality and ecosystem health in Connecticut. And so we study water quality and work with town partners like the folks on this call to try to make sure that there aren't any pollution sources entering our local waterways. And our focus as an organization is on sewage pollution. And so you'll be seeing the data I'll be sharing today are mostly bacteria data. And so just a little summary of the past year. So we didn't let COVID get us down. We continued our normal summer monitoring. We let it get us down, but we continued monitoring anyway. We studied over 200 field sites in Fairfield County and conducted biweekly May through September monitoring of 12 rivers and 15 towns. And 3 of those rivers were in New Canaan. And we've been talking to your commission about that work. We trained 35 high school and college students and processed over 1,300 water samples for bacteria concentration in our laboratory. And so as Linda mentioned, our 2020 monitoring in New Canaan was focused on the Norotan River, the Ripplewine River, and the Silvermine River. And I just want to say thank you for your support and partnership in this work. It's been great to work with the commission on this, and I'm delighted to share our results. So we put out a report with all of our data in it early in 2021, back in January. And so if you're interested in reading the full thing, there's a PDF available on our website, or I'm happy to share it by email as well. And so just to start with the Norotan River. So on the left, you'll see a map showing our study sites, the 3 northernmost of which are in New Canaan. And you'll see that the indicator bacteria, and in this case, we're using these bacteria to indicate whether a sewage pollution source might be present. You can see that 2 of the dots in New Canaan were green, which means they passed the state criteria for acceptable bacterial levels. And the northernmost site in New Canaan, Norotan 8, did not pass that state criteria. And so but when we look at I'm trying to move the Zoom thing around so that I can actually see my table now. Here we go. Okay. So, but when we look at the table on the right, you can see that the geometric mean for these bacteria concentrations in 2020 at that northernmost site was 148. The state threshold is 126. So it's failing, but it's both looking better than 2019, and it's only failing by a little bit. So I'm not particularly concerned about these sites in New Canaan. They're looking pretty good. Where we are a bit more concerned in this watershed is further south in Darien and Stamford. I've had meetings with our partners there over the last couple of weeks, working on a strategy for additional stormwater testing between sites 4 and 3, and also between sites 2 and 1, because as you can see, things are looking much worse down there. So overall, in general, we'll want to keep an eye on that northernmost site and make sure things don't get any worse, but I don't actually have any concerns about the New Canaan sites on the Norotan River at this time.
Great.
And then moving on to the Ripplewine River, we have a handful of sites. As you can see, they're sort of clustered at the top of this map here in New Canaan. And as you can see, again, most of the sites pass the state criteria, which is great. That site Ripplewine 10, again, failed, but only by a little bit. So 2018, it had, a geometric mean concentration of 130, and then 2019 was 144, 2020, 151. Those are all within sort of the margin of error. So there's been basically no change at that site, which is good. And then that furthest north site, Ripplewine 12, 2020 was better than 2019. And again, is not at an alarming level. One site I do want to point out is our site 0.5, which is our furthest south site down in Stamford. And as you can see in 2018, the geometric mean there was over 2,000. And we worked with the city of Stamford and identified some sewage pollution sources that were getting into the river just upstream of there. And they promptly fixed those. And as you can see, things have gotten much better since then. So in the 2 years since, we had a concentration of 158 and 331. So obviously greatly improved. We're continuing to work with them on additional potential sources. But again, the stretch in New Canaan is looking pretty good. And then looking at the Silvermine River, which is like the star of the show because the concentrations look so good all through New Canaan. So, you know, and for us to be seeing geometric means of 30 and 28, I mean, that's about as good as it gets in any of these waterways around Fairfield County. And so things are looking really good. We have 2 years of pretty good results here. Our furthest south site, site 1.5, we're keeping an eye on. It's a little bit higher, as well. Site our next site up are a little bit higher than we'd like them to be. So we're going to continue to keep an eye on those and work with some of the other watershed towns. But again, everything up in New Canaan is looking lovely, which is great. And I said this the last time too, when I met with your commission, but it's pretty rare that I get to come into a town meeting like this and give a thumbs up and, you know, just say like, you know, keep doing whatever you're doing because things look really good. So this is I have just a couple of sort of bigger picture maps to put these results in context. And so this is a map of all of our sites in 2020 with the green dots showing sites that passed both of the state criteria for bacteria and the red dots showing sites that failed either one or both. And as you can see, there are some waterways that we studied where literally all of the sites fail. And so the fact that we only have a handful of sites in all of New Canaan that were failing and only failing by sort of a borderline amount, I'm feeling really good about those results and the health of New Canaan's waterways as a result. I just have one more thing to show, which is just showing the percentage of sites that failed by town where we worked. And as you can see, some towns we have more sites than others, depending on which rivers we're working on in a given year. So New Canaan, we had 13 sites that we were monitoring this year, which was one of the more densely studied towns where we worked. Westport had 22. It's right in our own backyard, so we tend to do a lot of work there. And Wilton had 11, but you can see with New Canaan's 13 sites, only 23% of them failed, whereas Westport's 22 sites, 73% of them failed. So New Canaan stacks up quite well, I think, relative to the other towns where we're working, which is a testament to the hard work being done by your commission and folks in town to protect these waterways and to make sure that our infrastructure and our septic systems and everything that could be causing this type of pollution is all, you know, pretty up to snuff based on what we're seeing in the data. And so I know I want to talk just briefly about 2021. So like Linda said, we're interested in continuing our work on the Norotan River and the Ripplewam River, in particular because we're seeing such high concentrations further downstream. We want to make sure that as we dive in with those partner towns and try to make sure that we're fixing any pollution sources. We want to make sure that the water that's coming downstream from the more upland reaches of the watershed continues to look good. So those are priorities for us. And then 5 Mile River, we last monitored in 2017. And this is a map showing similarly sort of how things looked then. And the 5 Mile River, we'd had some pollution issues that we were able to identify on one of the tributaries down in Norwalk. But I'm interested to see what those sites 5, 6, and 7, sort of in the lower part of the waterway that's still in New Canaan, because they had been sort of iffy before. So we're going to be really interested to keep an eye on those sites in particular and you know, see how things look after a few years away from it. And we're not planning to monitor the Silvermine River, mostly because it's been looking so good. And so especially when we have waterways that don't seem to have any obvious problems, sometimes we'll sort of give them a break for a couple of years just because there's so many places to study and not enough time and not enough resources to study them all. And so we'll come back and revisit the Silvermine down the road. But I'm feeling confident that that things are looking pretty good there. And that's it. So I'm happy to answer any questions or talk through any of the data in more detail if that would be helpful.
I'll open the floor to any questions or points of interest. I would say, just briefly, I'm happy to see 5 Mile River on the list again. I know, Tiger, that you do some testing on 5 Mile as well. I don't know whether these are the same type of tests, but I'm glad that we're kind of rotating through all 4 rivers. And I do think that we need to continue to kind of publicize and share this information so that more and more of the residents and neighbors of these rivers and watersheds are aware of the downstream effects.
Absolutely.
And we can find ways to continue to improve our waters and our aquifers.
Yeah, can we, to that end, are we allowed to get a copy of your presentation and post it on our website?
Oh, absolutely. I can share the full report too.
That would be great.
Yeah,
Right.
it'd be
I mean, there's a couple of things in there that I could either get posted on the health department one or on my stormwater management one.
Sure.
We have a website, we have a web page dedicated to stormwater management because of the MS4.
Absolutely. The full report has all of the raw data in an appendix in the back too, which may or may not be helpful, but I find it sometimes nice to have. So we have basically like a page for each river with just sort of like a 1-page overview. So for folks who are really interested in sort of just the summary, and then if there are residents who want to really dig into the raw data or take a look at the details of what went into those geomeans and such, it's all in there. So I'll send that over to you. I'll send it now, and that way you can post it wherever you like. It'd be great.
Yeah. So just one question on some of the sites that we had that failed now that we were actually passing in years prior, or vice versa, right? So did we do anything proactively in those areas to then reach out to people in those areas to then drive that down? That actually helps me on my MS4 reporting as well.
So
we've actually made, outreach into certain areas, especially for like illicit discharge and things like that.
Yeah, Tiger, it'd be great to connect with you about how we can link in with the stormwater work that you're doing, or if there's, basically because everything had been looking so good and the sites that failed by such a small margin that it may well be sort of bad luck with rainfall or how the sites fell relative one year to the other, how many rainy days there were, things like that. So I tend to sort of raise the flag and call my equivalent contact like you would be in another town when I'm seeing episodic counts in the thousands, or I'm seeing sustained counts in the high hundreds. If I'm seeing a 28 on the Silvermine River, I'm not going to bother you with that. So we haven't had cause to do a lot of track down work in New Canaan because the results have been so good. And so if there are sites that are on your radar for some reason where additional data would be helpful, we can always collect additional data or we can do outreach. But I haven't found any of these sites so far, showing evidence of illicit discharges, anything like that. I just nothing, rose to the level where I expected that we would find anything with any additional track down work. So definitely happy to partner with you on that. And I know that some of the towns where we work include some of our raw data in their MS4 reporting. So if you ever want any of that, it's yours.
Yeah, we would like to. We just filed ours. We're in that 45-day period where it's it's out there in a draft form waiting for comments from the public. But yeah, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, definitely. And if you ever need anything during the field season as well, like we have all this available in real time. We just only put out the report once a year. So anytime any of this data would be useful, I'm just an email away or a phone call away. We're trying, to prioritize our track down work based on, the magnitude of the problem. So often we, go for the low hanging fruit first, which is, the Bruce Brook, where the counts are in the hundreds of thousands, things like that. But again, if you ever see something or you get a, like a public complaint or something about something that doesn't seem quite right, we can be over there, in an hour if we need to. So definitely keep me in mind and use us as a resource because that's what we're trying to help with.
That'd be great. Yeah, we for us, we haven't really had much concern in the other watersheds that we have. You know,
Right.
we do test in them as part of, you know, as part of our permitting. We have to. We got to
Right.
test a certain number of outfalls every year. But the 5 mile for us is like, since that runs straight through town, that usually tends to be the area of focus. It seems to be the one that we have. You know, where if we're going to get a call, that's where we're going to get the call from. You know.
So
If you-
Tiger, what do you test for?
We test for a various bunch of parameters. I don't know off the top of my head. It's as extensive and not as extensive as what's being done here. We have certain parameters that we have to test for from the MS4. Most of ours, as we talked about, is like illicit discharge is big, E. coli is big. There's some other things that we're trying to target from a developmental standpoint, where someone is necessarily has a sump pump in their basement and is then dumping it out into the stream, you know, or there's a cross contamination there coming through their septic system, something like that. So I'll get you the list of what we test for,
Okay,
but off the top of my head, I can't tell you.
yeah, okay, great.
Sarah, what do we know when I see those higher numbers at the bottom of the Norotan River? Do we know what kinds of things tend to elevate numbers when they get down there and they're consistently kind of that high?
So the data I showed today were just bacteria. So we have some other kinds of data as well that could indicate different kinds of things, but we're focused on looking for potential sources of sewage pollution. And so the primary types of sources we tend to find are things like failing septic systems or cracked sewer laterals or infrastructure failures. Sometimes we do see like illegal connections. So where a contractor has attached a sewer lateral into the stormwater system where it shouldn't be, or things like that. So it tends to be either municipal infrastructure or private infrastructure or septic systems that would be the primary causes. That said, though, so these bacteria are naturally present in waterways, which is why it doesn't go from 0 to 10,000. It's all sort of fluctuating, sort of in some low level, because all warm-blooded critters in the watershed have E. coli in their guts, just like people do. And so we use it as an indicator, which is why you'll see, like I said, sort of low levels of E. coli in the waterway, even if there isn't a sewage pollution source. And so that's why you have to interpret the data with a little bit of, it's more of an art than a science in a lot of ways, I like to say, just because it's, you really have to take all of this other contextual information into account when you're saying like, oh, do we have a problem here? And it warrants additional testing or not. And so that's sort of the context that we try to use to whether I wave the flag and pick up the phone to call Tiger or to call Tiger's colleagues downstream, or if we think it's something just critters in the watershed and things happening in the sediments in the river.
You answered my other question, which is how does it go from you seeing something to creating an action to try to find it and remedy it? And it sounds
our role obviously I can't dig up the road and fix the pipe. So that's not our role as an organization is to try to narrow down the problem to as small an area as possible, so that when we pass that data off to someone from a town, we're making it as easy as possible for them to fix the problem. So if I picked up the phone and called Tiger and said, you've got a problem on the 5 Mile River, he can't do, that's not actionable. He can't do anything with that information. But if we've done the legwork to narrow it down to a 1 block stretch, and we know there's 5 stormwater pipes that discharge into the river there, and we've checked them out, and this one looks problematic, then that's actionable data that he could then, mobilize his resources to do something about. And so, the role that I see for our organization, sort of in the great landscape of things happening in our towns, is that we provide this consistent source of data for people who can use it in a variety of ways. And then we also try to, like I said, make life a little bit easier for the folks in these towns who are charged with preventing pollution, because it's a big problem, and no public works or health department can possibly be in all of these waterways at all times to collect the baseline data needed to know if there's something going on. And so we try to sort of fill that data gap and hopefully, make it easier to get out ahead of some of these problems.
Thank you.
Thank you. And then,
Sarah, Avery is in attendance, Avery Cotton, who I introduced you to and introduced him to you.
Yep.
Do you have any update on the status of your education program?
So, a lot of our in-person programs are just going to depend on the speed of vaccination. So we're still doing a lot of stuff as sort of virtual hybrids, just for the safety of the students and our staff. And so I don't, I wish I had any control over the pace of that, but I unfortunately don't. So we're just going to play it a little bit. I'm a total type A planner. Like in a normal year, I could tell you, the date of the presentation for our fall program. But right now we're really just in wait and see mode until we see sort of, when our staff and students will be able to be vaccinated, just because our lab is a relatively small space and you can't do a lot of what we do outside. So even though the field work is all done outside, the lab work where we turn those samples into information is not super COVID friendly to have a lot of students in there. So to be determined. I promise I haven't forgotten, but it's just we haven't made any decisions yet about in-person student programs yet.
Okay, thank you.
and
Chris, sorry.
Go ahead, Tiger.
I just forwarded our MS4 annual report, the draft, to everybody, so you have it. It's quite extensive. But Linda or Susan, in answer to your question, we test for ammonia, chlorine, its conductivity, salinity, the presence of E. coli, surfactants, and then we take its water temperature, and then there's a note for a pollutant of concern, and then whether or not there should be a follow-up. And then there's a certain number of outfalls we've got to test every year, based upon what we see, and then some we have to go back to for year after year if we see something, things of that nature. But there's a large criteria set aside as to the number and the type and the amount that you have to do as part of the permitting. But you can take that and see.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Todd.
Sorry, I'm going to put in two more questions. Tiger, I'm assuming that's all the testing is done primarily downstream from the treatment facility.
No, we do stuff upstream as well. We do it. It's basically for us, it's outfall related, right? So we do test separately for the treatment plant, where we have testing upstream and downstream, since we have to have a baseline of what's coming into the plant and then what's leaving. Excuse me. And we have certain times a year that we do that. During the summer, there isn't much flow upstream. The plant is basically the flow downstream at that point. But we do at certain times a year, we test upstream and downstream, get you a baseline, and then see exactly how we're doing. But as far as the MS4 is concerned, that's all considered on outfalls, right? So it's based upon the number of outfalls you have, the number of, we actually have quite a number of drainage systems, as far as it goes throughout the town. So we have to test a certain number in each one of those annually, once actually quarterly. So we'll go out on a quarterly basis. Ty and Bond is our consultant. They take care of all the testing for us and the reporting. It's just, it's a Herculean task, as Susan said, Sarah said, there's not much that we can do. I wouldn't be able to handle it in-house.
Okay. Well, thanks, Tiger. And then Dr. Crosby, we would like to have our student scientists present something towards the end of the program, or when there's some actionable data about what we learned. So from a public awareness standpoint, it'd be great to have something scheduled. I don't know what the timing would be, in September maybe, or what have you. So let's keep that in mind. And then the Conservation Commission is delighted to support you and share your data.
Fantastic. Yeah, I'm going to send, I will send our report copy to, I don't think I'm on an email with everybody, but I'll send it to you, Tiger. I have your email address, and I'll send it to Chris and Linda. And then if you guys can share it for me, that'd be great. We'd love to get it out there. And again, if any of our data is helpful in an ongoing way, feel free to reach out, and I'm happy to share whatever would be helpful.
Great. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah. I'll be in touch.
All right. Thanks. Okay. I'm gonna duck out. Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Next item on the agenda is Native Tree Planting Program, Sustainable Connecticut Support Grant from the Conservation Commission of $2,650. Robin, would you like to discuss that?
Sure. Sustainable Connecticut, we're able to, Plant New Canaan is able to fundraise for native trees for the town, I believe either for Waveney or for streets. And I'm sorry, Tiger will fill in on that. But this would be a community match fund. It would go towards our silver certification. The issue we're having right now is Sustainable Connecticut is getting more popular, and they are now capping all programs at 7,500. The other issue is they're running low on funds until they get funding again. So we're just trying to get this approved as fast as we can. As I said, the first in line, first come, first served. We have been approved by Sustainable Connecticut. I have a meeting with Patronicity on Monday, so hopefully it will be all in before we lose out on that amount. But we have been approved by Sustainable Connecticut. Plant New Canaan is going to start working on the fundraising once we're cleared up with them, just in case we'd like to, for the Conservation Commission, to help in case we can't get to that amount, because of course you have to get to that amount in order to get the match. And these would all be, of course, native trees, help with the pollinator pathway. And once again, this would go towards our silver certification.
It's great. If the Friends of Bristol can share their donor list with you, we'd be happy to do it.
Yeah, that would be great.
And then can I know a little more about at 15,000, how many trees are you thinking about? What size are you thinking about? Or is that TBD?
That's
I'm going to cover
sorry.
that. Yeah, well, as you know, the tree warden has care and control of all trees in the town. So I met with Bob, talked to him about what he was looking at. We're losing a lot of the large maples that we have in Waveney, especially that are lining the drive. And the previous tree warden, Bruce Pauley, started some of the planting a little bit further back, especially since cars are parking on the edge of the pavement, and then they're just compacting the root systems and eventually killing the tree. But so he's looking at replacing the majority of those. So it's sugar maples and red maples, 4-inch caliper and above. The sugars are running on the wholesale list at about $7.95, and the reds are about $7.15. We're looking to try to put a tractor trailer load together, which would be about 10 trees. So it's about a $400-500 delivery fee. And then highway department and possibly some maybe an outside contractor helping us, like Joe Hussey with an excavator, working with our guys, will go and plant. So we figure somewhere on the order of 20 or so based upon that pricing. And then he was looking at some specifically along the roadways that we lost that were underneath the power lines that had eventually been pruned out, and kind of, you get that kind of look on the canopy where the wires are going through it, and then eventually it falls. So, and those we were looking at like a flowering dogwood at a 3-inch caliper. That I think that would be kind of nice. And those were running at about $400 or so a tree, $405 a tree. And then same exact thing, we get a number of those on a tractor trailer load and maximize the shipping for that. So, and he has a number of locations throughout town where he's had to actually lose a lot of that canopy along the roadside, and then we'll put the right tree in the right place at that point, right? So, underneath the power lines, obviously we need a little grow or something like that. So, but those are our initial thoughts, and I think we could, expand from there at that point. I know we have other areas we'd like to do, most of them for screening, things like that in the park. I'd like to screen around the paddle tennis, specifically from the pool side. You're looking at it, we have that wide open side. I'd like to kind of plant that, and then some other locations that we have in Mead and elsewhere that I think we could do.
It's so Robin, just if you'd like, I'd like to put a motion in front of the commissioners to support the tree planting program, Sustainable Connecticut Tree Planting Program, in the amount of $2,650. Can I get someone to make that motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Or further discussion?
The funding source, sorry.
Yes.
So it's sustainable. So what Planet New Canaan will be doing is the fundraising. The Conservation Commission can give up to 35% now of projects, and that's the number that Chris gave.
And the rest would be privately fundraised through
Privately funded.
Patronicity. Got it.
I'm just asking for your motion. What is the funding source for the, for the,
The Conservation Commission Sustainable Connecticut budget of $10,000, which we're drawing down to support sustainable CT projects.
okay,
Got it. I'll take a vote now. All in favor?
I'm sorry, the motion was moved by,
Moved by,
Moved by Cam, seconded by me, Linda.
sorry,
no
It's
problem.
okay.
All in favor?
okay,
Aye.
Aye.
you.
Motion is carried. It's great news, and I, for a town that has roads like White Oak Shade, Cherry, Elm, and what have you, I think that we could keep thinking about planting. Our $450,000 tree removal program always needs to shade a little bit into tree planting as well, and flowering dogwoods and anything that kind of hides a little bit, of view, the major power lines that run through our major roads. They're very scenic, with that exception, is a good program. So, and like you say, Tiger, we're losing a lot of big trees, and those are the keys to carbon, reducing our carbon footprint. So thank you.
Right. No, you're welcome.
Great, Robin, that's wonderful news. And again, anything else we can do to support that? Well, I think I'll make a quick adjustment in the agenda. Robin, you had sent, I'm going to just pick up on the mid-year mailer. And what we're looking at is a bifold with food scrap recycling on one side, and then information about Sustainable Connecticut, and then conservation related organizations in New Canaan, just to put the list down. Do you know when we would have to have that ready and printed by in order to be inserted in the June tax letters?
Soon, I guess would be not printed per se, but in order to get pricing from our our vendor that the tax collector works with. If I take this, I'll bring it back to them and say, if this is what we're looking at and what you'd like, then I can get a better pricing on it and see, and then get a better timing on it for you.
Okay. Well, then, can I just ask if Cam, Robin, and I work on that? We just really need to produce the backside message.
That's fine.
Go out.
If it's going to be one page, if it's something similar to this, and I could say this is, it's similar to this, and you go from there. That might. I reached out to Roseanne, and she said she's amenable, and she'd like to do it just for her sooner rather than later, right? That's all.
Let's set a goal of having this completed by the first week of April.
That'd be awesome.
Okay. Thank you. Just continuing on the agenda, Robin, while you're here, a quick update on the food scraps recycling program. I would like to make one observation. It seems the bins are awful full before they're emptied. And I've seen people kind of open one, close it, next one, next one, next one, next one. I mean, that's a good problem, but it suggests that you're going to have to increase your capacity, particularly if you're going to market this again through the letter.
Do you want to answer that, or you want me to?
Yeah, Tiger, you can answer.
So Robin brought that to my attention this morning, that some people have been turned away because they couldn't find a bin. So we've been having our staff move them in and out because we're running out of room where we are. So we actually have bins set off to the side, and they'll bring them in and out. And I spoke to Donnie Smith and said, hey, we have to be a little bit more cognizant as we go. It's nice to have a full bin because we're paying by bin. $75 for him to come there, and then per bin. And if it's got a little in it, it does cost the same amount as a lot in it, right? So, but it has to be the point where it's still user friendly, where either you open it up and you're not grossed out, or you open it up and there's no room, right? So, so I asked them to be a little bit more diligent on that. And if we've got to get some additional toters in and leave those off to the side, then we'll do that. At present, right now we've been steadily increasing. We started off at 4. Went a couple weeks at 4, and we went about 5 weeks or so, 6 weeks at 6. Now we're at about, I think we're at our 7th week or 8th week at 8. And I think now we're at that point where we've got to go further, because the last date I had, they had a pickup on the 9th. I didn't get the ticket yet, but on the 2nd, we actually broached for the first time 1,000 pounds. So we broached a half a ton in a week, which was fantastic, right? So I'm just waiting for the 9th to see how that goes. But you know, the if you I had a graph and stuff to show you, but basically, you know, it's basically tonnage per week is just showing it steadily increasing, right? So which is what we want to see. And then commensurate with that is disposal price per ton is doing the exact same thing. A little more logarithmic, but it's still on its way down and headed south, which is what we want to get to the point where it would cross the line as what it would cost us to dispose of it if it was MSW.
Right.
And at that point in time, then we're making money on it, right? You know, not that we need to make money, but it's nice to get those lines closer together. But yeah, it was nice to see 1,000 pounds on March 2nd on that pickup. That was a good day.
So I think keeping the messaging up, Robin, is great. It's probably on an S curve where you get early adopters. At some point, it might pick up even stronger, maybe with the July effort.
Mhm.
Will flatten out again for everybody who goes to the transfer station. It seems like a logical next step. The trick is to remember when you throw your dustbins in the back of the car to go grab the food scrap bin as well, to make sure it works. And I loved seeing the fact that our supermarkets are now supplying disposable bags in their produce sections.
Well, Walter Stewart's it.
Walter Stewart's is.
Yeah.
Well,
So
maybe
we're still saying no produce bags except for Walter Stewart's. We sent, Walter Stewart's contacted us. They sent us the information, the bags, we sent them to curbside compost. We got the okay. So we want that messaging that it's Walter Stewart's is okay. We're gonna go look at Trader Joe's because supposedly they have compostable bags, but we need to make sure because sometimes places run out of them and then they go back to the regular plastic. So we're a little, wary of that, except that Walter Stewart's has committed to help the program, and they as well. They're doing curbside pickup as curbside compost pickup. They're doing I think it's 20 bins a week.
wow. Well, they have probably a lot of produce. Well, it'd be good if we had a contact at Acme as well to see if they can start using those bags. So
Yeah.
that's a really great start and great teamwork on getting it up, and Donnie and his crew maintaining it. So I couldn't be happier. In that vein, I would mention that the New Canaan Night article on Swap Shop certainly generated a lot of interest and attention from
Yeah.
the general public. So and I can tell you, I'm in the process of moving house. I could fill up the Swap Shop right now if I wanted. Personally.
Sorry, I gotta run to another meeting, but I just want to say that will be the problem with any swap shop is the first few months, because I have people contacting me that they're waiting for this, which is always concerning. But the good thing about the press is we do have now about 14 people who signed up who would like information about volunteering. So we're working on getting the volunteers. They know it's something out in the future, but we have people interested.
Good.
And on that note, I've got to jump to another Zoom, but any quick questions on that? I mean, just is
Nope,
what it
we
is.
would like to support that effort in the coming fiscal year. So great news.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Robin.
Thank you, Robin.
Bye.
All right, I'm going to continue down. Tiger, I still haven't really gotten any luck from Mark on consistent data reporting on solar. And,
Yeah, we're working with him on it. He's, as far as what we're trying to get something up on our website, like saying consistent to yours. I think we have it in test mode right now. Might even be up. I'll check with Joe.
Mhm.
And we're trying to dial through on trying to get a annualized report as to how we're doing, for each of the, 4 installations in the town and then the schools.
Yep.
So I'll circle back with him again, and I noticed that on the agenda. I didn't follow up beforehand. I apologize. But I'll circle back with him and say, hey, before your April meeting, let's give you something a little bit more tangible.
Yep. Yeah, it would be good to know, that these systems are on, I assume they're on net metering, and that, you know,
They are.
the town has made an investment in solar and is getting a return on that solar. That's what and along with the environmental or conservation benefits, that there is a good economic argument for doing this.
Yeah, there's both. And right now, we are seeing, you know, the meter might not be spinning backwards, but it's definitely taking the top off of what we're utilizing,
Yep.
what we're using. So I'll get you a little bit
Yep.
firmer data for the April.
Right. It's probably too early to have seen any effect on our electrical budgets in this last round, but it might have an effect next year. We might be able to.
Yeah, well, to that end, I took, not this past year, but the year before, at the implementation of the solar, I actually took $5,000 off the highway department budget and the town hall budget for electricity in anticipation. So I'll let you know if we made it. If I strike gold by June 30, I'll be all set. So
There you go. All right. I'm going to skip item G and H. Our Conservation Commission budget for the fiscal year 2022 is at $24,000 for a variety of programs similar to what we show here. On the Bristow Bird and Wildwood Preserve, the current capital plan does have 112,000 submitted for the upcoming fiscal year. And I believe Tiger was in a conference call with Keith Simpson and others laying out the planning for implementation of the next phase, which is mostly related to spurs off the main trail.
right, exactly. So we're working towards that now. We have a Gannon fence is coming out Monday to the fence line along 106. Have that completely removed and reinstalled. The pedestrian gate will move from, I guess you would call it, the eastern side of the large tree to the western side, sister it next to our double gated entryway. And then we'll have the contractor come back in and remove that little spur trail that leads up there. So that'll be taken care of within about the next 7 to 10 days, so to speak. So by next Saturday, Sunday, you'll see some action through there. And then you mentioned pollinator pathway. I'm waiting for one more plan from Keith. And at that point, I can give the planting plans to contractors to have them help us on a bid for helping us plant. We have 3 in Mead, the entrance at Mead, 2 islands at Mead, and then we have Bristow, and then the fernery that we're looking to do as well. And then we're putting together the plan set for the wetland walkway. And then from there, we'll go to the other spur trails, whether it's the trail along the railroad or along the stream bed. And then look to the crossing area, the viewing area at the crossing. So those are the kind of things we're going to attack at Bristow this year. I think it'll be a nice second phase.
Yep. I have only compliments for what you and your crew have been doing at Bristow, bringing that park back to life. So that is just great news. From my side, Tiger touched on the $15,000 fernery installation that we have funded. And also we have funding in line or committed for the center crossing pavilion. So I think that in the coming fiscal year, we'll take another big step of improvements and maintain our momentum towards the 2024 centennial celebration. One little quick item I'd like to point out is that the bird habitat educational exhibit signs have come in. I think I shared that with the commissioners. It's in Tiger's office right now. There'll be a little bit of planning work to establish that, but it's a pretty neat way to educate the general public on the different birds they might see and how they might support habitat for those birds. So it is it's a great program of bird habitat education. And, it's sort of inspired by, I think it was Winding Trails, right?
Winding Trails, recreation area in Farmington,
but also by the fact that, Newell and Avery have been so dedicated in birding work and sharing birding information. That's part of the mission of Bristow is bird education, as well as native plant learning and education. So That'll be an exciting exhibit to go up. And I believe in the coming week, and I know Newell, you had mentioned that the coming week, it looks like there'll be 26 birdhouses installed at Bristow. Some of them will be along the Mead Park fence line next to the Bristow, and it looks like one or two will be set out along the pond area on the walk side of the pond, the far side.
The eastern side.
Yep, and I think they're going to go with a narrow pole with a PVC pipe, PVC predator prevention piece on it. So it won't be a very big footprint to work around, but it will require a little workaround, like, you know, to weed whack underneath it, I guess, at some point. So we'll try to minimize that. So there's some exciting next steps coming at Bristow to maintain all great momentum. Newell, Avery, do you guys have anything else to report in your walks through Bristow?
Hi, Chris and everyone. I guess I would say first, following on the birdhouse topic, there are about 5 or so dilapidated houses there as well, mostly along the main stream. Are those going to come down? Some of them are really not usable. Okay.
Right. We'll what's the term called when you take something out of service? Tiger, you
Decommission.
retire.
Decommission or retire it.
We're gonna decommission those, which have probably been sitting there for 20 years or more. So that's a great point. This will be very exciting for us. It's the Connecticut Audubon team that's coming down to do the installation. So I'm feeling very positive about that. And then hopefully we'll create a little sign and a little map. We'll pin it on a map so that people will say, okay, this is where the birdhouses are. So you'll have that kind of information, which we also need because at the end of the cycle, we'll have to get up there and clean them all out. So there's some maintenance required.
Right.
I've seen bluebirds. How about you guys?
Not yet in there. That's good news.
I haven't seen them in there. I saw them in my front yard, believe it or not. So,
Lucky you.
right? It's they're starting to make a move, and then I've had 2 people report woodcock in New Canaan, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, if you're looking for woodcock, Avery and I have seen and or heard both Waveney Park and the Land Trust's Still Pond Silver Mine Preserve, the Hicks Meadow, which is there on 106 as you're going toward Wilton. They're out there. It's a little early, but they're out there.
Yep, they're the most comical looking birds you'll see. They're just extraordinary. So great news on the birding front. So I'm going to skip any other questions or points on Bristow.
Can I mention one thing quickly? I was in there today, and the crossing bridge that Chris is your backdrop today. It's getting a little clogged with leaves and branches as debris, and the flow through the pipes under the bridge. It's like, and it's backing up a bit. So that may be a seasonal thing, but I just noticed that because it's going to be kind of stagnant water upstream of that as we then go toward the Mead Park ball field. Mm-hmm. And I don't know whose remit it is, but and that's probably a seasonal thing, but it's going to affect the water flow through the whole site.
Yeah, Maria and I noticed that this morning on a walk. We had to go out to meet a contractor, engineer surveyor for the planning of the walkway from Park Street, or sidewalk from Park Street down Old Stamford to up the pull off, since we need DOT permitting, and we noticed that this on our walk. So I'll mention that to the Parks Department and have them go out there and take a look. We did notice that there was there was some debris catching in there.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Excuse me.
Thank you for that report. Then I'm going to switch over to on open space. And I know I got a little tickler note from Aaron saying, what else do we need to do? Cam, do you think we could find a way to get on a Zoom call with Aaron and kind of get a specification of a list of primary open spaces in New Canaan and any adds or drops that have occurred to get a new number on it?
Yeah, if, I don't, is that something you can set up
Yeah.
with Aaron? Because
I'll
I'll let
set
you know
it
my availability, because I
Yeah.
don't know exactly what it is.
I'll set it up with Aaron, and maybe we can get Lynn Avney on there. It's important to us because right now it feels like we're going to get the 112,000 budget for Bristow, given the performance we've done to date and the funding that we're bringing in. It's important for us also to get the $50,000 for the land acquisition fund.
Right.
And to do that, we need the supporting data to say, look, at some point, Pac-Man is going to happen to the water companies, whether it's first Norwalk or second Norwalk districts. And, Aquarian has a track record now of, parceling, buying and selling off pieces of land.
Yep.
And if the town isn't prepared to play, that's never going to happen. There's no way a not-for-profit can do it. So we need the town to build up some reserves to be able to play in that parameter, whether it's in 5 years or 25 years. It's important to be prepared.
Yep.
And that takes me towards the end. I believe on the 16th, the town council will take up the vote to pass the ordinance to be able to allow the town to rebate real estate taxes paid by a land conservation organization. So progress has been made there to facilitate or to ease the process with which the land trust can preserve land, which it does on behalf of all of the citizens of New Canaan. So there's good news there. And I already touched on the year-end mailer. I'll open the floor if there are any other questions or discussion topics from you or Susan or Linda.
Not for me.
Okay. Susan? Then I think we're set. Newell, Avery, always grateful to see you join us. Tiger, thank you so much for your support. And Pam, always thank you for hosting us. We do appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's now, hold on, 7:27. I'd like to call the meeting to a close.
So
So move.